In the final part 3, Robert stumbles upon a group of men who help him heal in his life and the battle with his son and their ultimate redemption. Enjoy. Imagine a conscious contact with God so strong that no matter what you are doing or not doing, that no matter what your kids are up to or not up to, and that whether you've got the person of your dreams or they're just not cooperating, that you are happy, content, and at peace. A space where everyone else's thoughts, attitudes, and actions are beautiful and exactly as they are supposed to be. Well, this is the space where I like to play. My name is Misha Z, and this is today's Bitch Slap. Join me as I shed light on the thoughts, actions, and attitudes that are causing you pain, and we train our minds to go to the capital S inner self, the joy that is waiting for us, the God within. Another very cool thing that I thought that you had fallen into that we talked about was you had mentioned on the fly you'd fallen into this guys group for support, and let's say it's outside of the traditional sober recovery group. You found some outside resources, and shit that dads have to go through. Right?
No, so, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think it is difficult as a man to have interpersonal relationships with other men and for them to be real. I think most of those conversations tend to be topical, or they're pointed on something very specific, and it can be a sign. I would say I think our society perceives men as being weak if they cry or if they share their feelings. So I did fall into a group. It was a group of fathers that I met through originally through Cub Scouts, and then as our kids grew up and went through Boy Scouts. They're all local here in the community where I live, and we just started having coffee once a month on the first Friday of a month. And it was kind of like a networking. I mean, we all had some form of faith that we believed or that we followed, and so it was that, and topics varied all the time. And now and it's been 10 years now that we've been doing this, and so we've all seen our kids grow up, and we share our struggles. And last year, when I was going through all of this, they were the first group of people from a support standpoint that I shared with, and it was very powerful, and the support that came from them was incredible. And so it just being like friends, but then getting deeper. It's unique. I mean, I've moved a couple of times in my professional career. I've lived here in this community for 10 years. Prior to that, I was in the Chicago area for 6-7 years. I was in Denver for 3 years. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I've done some moving around, and sometimes it's hard to connect when you move a lot. But even then, I think it's just hard to connect. I mean, I would see my wife join these clubs and do things, and she had these touchy-feely relationships, and men don't do that. And so
we just sometimes don't do that, do we?
we don't, and it is what it is. It's not good or bad. It is what it is. So I think it's unique that I do have this group, and we share a lot. I mean, we help each other work on cars, and I got a delivery coming to my house. I need some extra muscle to come move it into the backyard. Can you help me with that? It's just everything that you would imagine in a male relationship with our friendship, but then to have this element of deeper understanding and support and things like that. And unfortunately, I guess what I'm saying is that as parents, as dads, we all go through so much stuff in our life, and we tend not to share it. And when you start to share it, here's this group. It's like, oh my gosh, we all are suffering, or our journeys all have these similar or elements that we could work with one another and share on journeys that we probably wouldn't share with someone else, because we're ashamed that we didn't do our parenting job right, or for whatever reason it is, we just choose not to share. We keep it in, and we're like, I'll get over it. It'll be okay. And when we do share, we do engage another father, it's great to get a different perspective.
It really is. And that vulnerability is so powerful. I love to, as we're talking, again, that conversation, I was so struck about how the tools available to us as professional fathers that are trying to thrive, have success, have healthy families. Like I was very struck by it, that conversation where it was like, all right, there's community, that having that healthy community. So let's call it healthy coping tools, right? So
Yeah.
right, outside of drinking, outside of drugging, outside of pills, outside of all this stuff. And so there are tools available to thrive when things get wonky, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and I'd like, you've got the, of course, recovery community. Now you've got sort of the normie community for
Yep.
those outside of, aren't familiar with recovery. We call those people normies. So any normies listening, God bless you. But and how powerful that is, and not to discount it, because I think it's easy to get myopic in sort of the 12-step group therapy mindset to be like, this is the only answer, when in reality, like, there is great support, love, connection, community available outside,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's
So
exactly
so
right. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I was struck by that. I love it. I can tend to be an island myself, so that's why I I'll say it again. I can tend to be an island and try and figure it out myself, or internalize it, or think my way through it. And so,
I think that's
there's
I think that's a prominent male trait, and I think
yeah,
that's we all suffer from that. I mean, I'll give an example. I mean, even within the meetings, I hadn't shared for a year about all of my losses and what I was going through. I was in fear of it.
yeah,
And last week was incredible to share that, to have so much support coming in, and even knowing it was the right thing to do, and even having the avenue to do it, and the safest possible place to be vulnerable, I still was reluctant to do it. And
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah, yes. And then we do it, and it's like the freedom that comes from it, and the love and support is quite amazing. Um, I wanted to make sure we touched on one other thing, um, and that is the idea of everyone has an opinion as far as being a parent, and you've got challenging kids. And I'll tell you what I came across. It was a great tool for me. Somewhere along the line, I this prayer was dropped into my life, and I was like, God, how can I support your path for whatever, for my son, setting aside my own selfish wants and desires, and then being open to the solutions to support their path, right? And really being able to own what clearly the universe was saying is the best direction, and then push away the outside opinion. So maybe you can talk to me about that quickly.
yeah, I so let me start with, for me, I had no, I'm going to call it, formal religion growing up. So
Yeah,
my spiritual journey and my religious journey is solely because of a 12-step program.
okay,
So I was 10 years sober before I sought out, and I always call it formal religion, just because, I never went to church. But when I married
yeah,
my wife, who's a cradle Catholic, we chose to raise our children Catholic, and we did that. And I participated in all of it, even though I was a normie in the Catholic Church, because I wasn't part of the team. And I had a calling late in sobriety, and I went through RCIA, which is this incredible program as an adult where you become into the Catholic faith. And it's not like a seminar. It's a year-long commitment. For the kids do it in their high school years, and it's a 2-year commitment. Same amount of hours, Anyway, so through that, when I started to pray, I was taught to never pray for things, but to pray, um, as you said, pray for guidance, or just tell me what to
Service
do,
support.
or yeah, just grant me strength, grant me,
Yeah.
guidance, humility, grace, and
Yeah.
not to say, oh God, I need this, please get me this job, kind of
Yeah.
thing. It was always like, hey, just show me the path, just take me on your path and help me be of service to you. And so it was interesting because as I became Catholic and my wife was long Catholic, not that we would have arguments or discussions around praying, but I,
Yeah.
I was very particular that I never, like, people are like, oh, can you pray for me? And I'd be like, sure, but I wasn't like, oh, you're sick, let me pray that you'll get healthy.
Yes.
Um, I mean, I hate to say that may not be God's path. I assume it is, but
Yeah.
that's just a simple example. It's like, I'm going to pray for God's plan for you, and that's always been in all of my prayers. That peace. Now, I do thank God every night for keeping me sober.
Yeah.
And when people ask me how I did it, I take zero ownership. I mean, this is all divine. It was all given to me, the ability to become sober, and all I did was just follow God's path on a daily basis. I
Yeah.
didn't do anything. I mean, that's what's so great about sobriety. It's not, we don't achieve anything. We can say, look, I did something by not doing something, by not drinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like the massive cop out. It's like, look what I've done. No, wait, look what I've not done for 15 years. So,
Yeah.
um, anyway, so what you said to me, just, it speaks to that I am very careful to not put myself in any position of power or knowledge or thought of my will. And I know there's a line, or thy will, not mine, be done.
Yeah.
And that is so, so I am a big believer in the long version of the Serenity Prayer. We always say the short version, but my sponsor taught me early on, is like, there's a long version of that. And I don't pray it every day like I used to in my early sobriety, but it is
Yeah.
still a big part of my life. And it speaks to that. It speaks to, not only do we not know what the hell's going on, we shouldn't even fool ourselves that we know what the hell's going on.
I love
We should
it.
we should
So good.
just be thankful that God is guiding us. And I know if I just wake up every day and I live in the moment and I just live the day, I'm pretty sure that from some divine method, I'm going to be shown what to do.
Yeah.
And the moment I try to take anything back, I'm going to screw it up. So
Yeah.
why even try?
Yeah.
Just trust.
Just trust.
And it's worked really, really well. I have I've nothing I don't think I've missed out on. Just backing up, what I like about the long version of the Serenity Prayer is it mentions to be reasonably happy in this life. And that also
Yeah.
was key for me. Getting
I
rid of
love
the
that.
highs and lows, just reasonably happy. It's like my goal is just to be reasonably happy. And
Ain't
and
nothing wrong with
and
that.
and the best part is like you're happy, okay? It's like life doesn't need to be these Instagram moments and all these things. It's like reasonably happy is awesome. I
That's
mean, it's
awesome.
truly awesome. And to be
Yeah.
able to teach our kids that too, that's awesome.
That's what a
So
gift. What a
yeah.
gift. Um, that the list that you texted me, do you
Yeah,
feel like you hit enough of those points
I do. This
or
is kind of like the last wrap up, like the rapid fire part of it. So I just wanted to share these because I think they're important. Some of these I've learned early on, and some of them are a little more recent. So I broke this into a couple, like some categories. So like for other husbands or for other spouses to understand that love is a verb. This is something I learned early on in
Mm,
Retrovite that I mentioned. And that's really important because people think of love as this feeling, or it's like, I'm going to love someone, but love is a verb. Love is something you do to your spouse, and not in that sense, in the sense of, bringing her coffee when she's on a Zoom call, or just doing things that that she wants you to do without asking, without pointing them out and going, look, I did this thing you wanted me to do. Just behave as though you love someone and not expecting anything in return. Just remember, love
unconditional
is a
love.
verb. Just act on it. Just love your partner.
Love it.
And then for dads, I said, connect with your kids at their level. And this this occurs through their entire life. So when my kids were really, I had a neighbor who brought together some dads early on, and just said, I want advice. I consider you my band of merry men. Give me advice as a parent what I should do. And my advice, because this guy was huge, he was like 6'6" or something. I'm like, connect with your kids at your level. And he goes, well, what does that mean? It's like, okay, your son now is like, just learn to walk. I said, when you hug your child, don't pick him up and hug him. Get on your knees, look him in the eye and hug him,
Mm.
and always work with them at their level. And that also means physically. So as they grow, then you go from your knees to
Mm.
kneeling to then you can stand. And like my son, all my sons, you're like, so my one son, he's taller than me, and I have to like get on my tippy toes to hug him. So now it went the other way. But and then also emotionally and academically with them, to always connect with them. I always watch cartoons with my kids. I know all the names of the SpongeBob characters. I knew
Yeah.
all the names of my kids' stuffed animals. I mean, it was just important to me. I always was in their life at their level at that time in their life. So
It's
don't
beautiful.
ever think your job or whatever you do is too important to talk spootsy wootsy with your kids or anything like that, because that's part of being a dad for me, and I really enjoy that. And I have a great and then now today it's like knowing all the cool memes, so I can
Yeah.
communicate with my older kids through memes and through little colloquial social media catchphrases that are funny. So there's that piece. And then for sons, and I added this in because when my dad retired and he moved close to me, and I realized I had to parent up. I had to now be the parent of my parents, and that was really hard for me. I mean, I it was a whole different view. And so I had heard in a meeting about praying to be like, I used to always like, give me strength to be a better father, give me strength to be a better husband. And I would then pray, give me strength to be a better son. And that
Mm.
was so I could, take care of my dad and take care of my
Mm.
mom. and
Mm.
and I think that's important, that as we do shift from being the parent of our or the son of our parents, and we become their parents, that so I added visit or call your mom and dad as much as possible, because
Mm.
they love to hear from us. And again, as much as possible, I mean, depending on strained relationships and things like
Yes.
that. But
Yes.
when my mom and dad lived here, it was awesome. I loved so much to go visit them. And now my mom, she's super healthy, she's in a home, and she's mingling with everyone, and I get to call her all the time and talk to
Mm.
her, and it's just great. I just love it. So that's important to do that. And then I said for acceptance, live the serenity prayer, and this goes to your spirituality. It goes to your life. It goes to your recovery. The truly understanding what we have control over and not fighting that. I mean, because that's what I love about the serenity prayer, the wisdom to know the difference. That's the
Mm.
hardest part of it. I mean,
Yes.
we can all have the serenity to let go of things, but sometimes we struggle with the wisdom to know the difference. And wisdom,
Yes.
the key part of wisdom is experience. So as you get older and as we get more experience, we have a better sense of what we need to accept and what we need to change. So live the serenity prayer. And then for me, the one that works for me the most is, if we were to live, we had to be free of anger. This is my favorite part. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. These things are poison.
Mm.
And I use that often because sometimes with my spouse, she gets worked up around things in the neighborhood that happen, and she wants to have justice and fix things, or which is fine. And I sometimes get pulled into it, but I have to recognize that I can't do
Can't
that. It's
afford it.
not the grouch and the brainstorm. I just have
Yeah.
to let go of it. I just can't worry about
Yes.
those things. So I
Yes.
support you in your battles, my dear wife, but I can't be a part of it. And then the last thing I'm going to end with on this bonus round is, um, like the overall humility. I saw this the other day, and it came back up again on my social media feed, which was a sign that just said, "You're never too important to be nice to people."
Mm.
I travel a lot for work. I haven't, obviously, in the last year. And in my travels, you interface with so many levels of people, whether they're the cashier or they manage the desk at the hotel, or it's the pilot, or, there's all these people, and they're all awesome. and there's no reason to ever be curt or mean or not pleasant. And I think that's the key, is just not pleasant. Why not just smile all the time and like your kids, meet them at their level. Um, and sure. And I use traveling because there are times when traveling just sucks and it's no one's fault. It just is what it is. And the best thing you could do is just to always thank people and assure them that they're doing a great job. I love it when I run into like a trainee or someone like that. I'm just like, hey, you're doing great. It's your first day on the job. It's like, don't worry, things will be
Yeah.
really good. Just set them at ease.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Be
and
supportive.
yeah, be supportive. And you're never too important to to you know to not to be nice to people. So and my last example of this is the other day I was driving, someone like flew past me and it got me all worked up, and I was in that headspace of thinking, and I was trying to use my DBT skills, and I finally was able to do some mindfulness and let it go. Later the day, similar kind of occurrence. Someone was coming out of the parking lot the wrong way, and they just the simple courtesy way, and they're like, oh, the courtesy way. And
Yeah.
it's like, God, I
Yeah.
love that. And just
Yeah.
knowing the power of someone saying, oh, sorry, I screwed up, and it was
Yeah.
like, totally cool, no
It's all
problem.
good.
But
Yeah.
it's amazing when there's no courtesy wave, you just go to like, ah.
Uh,
So I recognize that. And so the courtesy wave, the smiling, the engaging people as you travel,
mm,
wherever you go all the time, is so important. Don't ever put yourself in a place where you think you're better than anyone else, because it's just,
mm,
you're going to ruin someone's day, and we need
mm.
more happiness in this planet.
I love it. That's beautiful. You know what? I thought we were going to be done, but I would be remiss if we didn't at least touch on, and I cut you off when you were going to talk about it. But when you and your son were having your hardest moment
Mm-hmm.
moments, and your wife and the family, and then doing the wilderness
Therapy.
the wilderness therapy. And so I guess that when you say, oh yeah, I went to wilderness therapy, it's not quite that easy. So why don't you just maybe give me the 2 days before and
Yeah,
then
or the 17 years before. So,
yeah.
and I'm going to also start with this. I have a really close friend who had evoked the wilderness therapy event with his son, and when he was
Yes.
telling me about it, I was like, what is wrong with you? I mean, honestly, and I feel so guilty for that, because I've
Yes.
talked with him about it, but it just is like really, like you couldn't work it out.
Yes.
So
And
again, and that haunts me. And so this was, things were escalating. The police had been at our house. My son was, slightly physical with my wife, like shoved her one time, and nothing was getting done. Schoolwork, there was vandalism in the neighborhood. And I remember one time being so vulnerable with him, going and lying down next to him in his bed and just lying there with him. We were both staring at the ceiling and just saying, listen, it's like, I've been through struggles. I know you're struggling. It's like, just what, I'm here for you. Let's,
yeah.
I just want to listen. I'm not gonna yell anymore. It's like I'm getting tired of that. I want to guide you, but let's work together on this. And I remember crying. I mean, it was just like I just poured my guts out. I was super vulnerable. You know what his response was? Are
What's
you
that?
done? Are you done?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I was like, oh.
Oh
And my
God.
wife was sitting there, and she was like, oh my God. It's like, but I know, I've learned that he listened and absorbed all of that. He just couldn't like respond,
Yes.
and that's
Yes.
okay.
And
And
how
for dads,
oftentimes have I been in that space as an
yeah,
adult man? Someone, a wife or an ex is pouring out their soul to me, and all I need to do is hug, engage, and I'm just like in the.
yep.
Can
And
it,
you're just
yeah,
like, okay, you done yet, or are you
yeah,
over, or yeah,
oh,
I didn't cause any of that. That's all on you, kind of thing.
yeah,
So we were at a point where my wife and I were both on the fence. Like, we were going back and forth on, should we do this, should we not? So basically, wilderness therapy is living off the land, or well, living in an environment that is, you're literally backpacking for 90 days, and
Okay.
every day you're doing group therapy. They bring food in, but all the kids are self-sufficient. They're all working together, a group of about 10, cooking their own food, going through intense therapy, doing all this stuff. Basically, they strip them of everything other than
Yeah.
food, clothing, and shelter. And when
Yes.
they're down to just that, where they need to like do these things to survive, and I'll tell you, he left here in November and went to the Utah desert, and it was snow on the ground, and it was cold, like freezing,
Mm.
freezing cold. He, you know, two, it was just before Thanksgiving, so he spent, Thanksgiving in the desert and Christmas, and we communicated through letter writing once a week. We did finally get to go see him a little more than halfway through, and we spent the night with him. He made us camp, and we slept,
It's
in the
beautiful.
snow. It was 10 degrees, and they provided us with all the gear and everything. But it was amazing. I mean, the amount of emotion that was in me, and to be able to speak openly, and I mean, it was incredible. And he grew so much. And
Yeah.
to see him hug my wife, and for them to talk, and it not to be contentious, it was incredible. I mean, it was a gift. It was a gift from
Yeah.
God, absolutely. So that is what wilderness is. And leading up to that, we went back and forth, and finally, when we needed to get him there, we were worried for our safety and his safety, and we had to actually hire a couple guys to come out
Yeah.
and transport him. And that, you worry about that.
Mm.
I mean, he jokes about it now, but 3 a.m. we walked in
Mm.
his room and woke him up, and they got him up and drove him to the airport. Got on a plane, and he literally was rousted in the middle of the night. And,
Escort
he
escort
escorted,
services. I think you
yeah,
called it.
and left with the shirt on his back. They're like, "We got everything you need at camp." And that, I remember, that was, if anything was funny, was as we were describing to him what he's like, "Well, what do I need?" And they're like, "You don't need anything. We're going to equip you with everything." And I had been told, it's like, "Yeah, you're going to get a backpack and a sleeping bag and all that, and you're going to keep it all." He's like, it was like, "Oh, that's awesome, man. That's dope. I get like all this new camping gear." And he was happy about that, and he still has all his camping gear today. So,
Amazing.
but that was, I would say, at that moment in my life, that was the hardest decision as a parent, as a father, that I ever had to make. And even as I made that decision, my wife and I went back and forth, and we both like fought with one another. Like
Mm.
she would take on, "We got to do this," and I would be like, "Well, maybe if we just double down and we hug him more." And then I was like, "Fuck it, he's out of here, man." My wife's like, "Come on, we really want to do this." And there were a couple events in that last 48 hours that were truly divine, between the program actually opening up and being able to communicate with someone who had gone to the program and talking to them, and it just like fell into our lap, and the transport service came available. And so we were like, "This is God calling, we're going to do this." And again, at that moment, and even all the way through it, I was just in fear that I had made the wrong decision. I know
Mm.
now it was the right decision. And so, and that's one of those things that we talked about. It's like, how do you pray for that? And all you can do is just ask for God's will and God's strength and His grace, and just accept, and know at the moment it was the right thing to do. And
It's beautiful. Yeah.
yeah,
Especially when outside opinions are coming at you, I think, from other parents or what have
yeah,
you.
yeah. And I would add, again, every situation is unique. And so, unless you truly know your spouse, your family, your son, your daughter, you are the best equipped to make that decision. Sure, you can seek advice, but I think it's key that what you said there is, there was a lot of, "Well, have you tried this, and what about this and this, and too much social media, or maybe he's taking drugs, or is it a problem
Yeah.
with a girlfriend?" And we've had a really structured household. There's, like, all of our kids, we never had any, and I don't know why, we've never really had any issues with drugs or alcohol. I probably scared them to death because I told them my story when they turned 13.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was like all the things that people say, these are the contributors to this type of behavior. none of those existed and still don't exist today. So yeah, make the decision for your family, for your kids, from your heart, from God.
It's beautiful. I think that you know what, Robert, thank you for being so vulnerable, sharing your experience, strength, and hope as a father, husband with 4 kids, and such a beautiful gamut of experience. If people want to reach out to you via email, maybe they feel like they could use some help or direction, that's okay. Yes.
Yeah. So if you want to put my email when you post the podcast, that would be fine.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you so much. I am going to hit stop and then we can say goodbye.
Okay.
Okay. Hold on one second here. I'm going to hit end recording. Stop. And there you have it, the end of part 3, the end of the 3-part series with Robert, who so graciously shared his experience with his family so that we can learn, heal, and grow ourselves. Thank you for spending time with me today. As someone who is committed to growth and service to this world, I so appreciate your willingness to come with me, go within, and serve our world through change. If you found value in this podcast and you know someone who can use this message, share this episode with them. Share it so our mission can be achieved one episode at a time. And of course, subscribe so you can hear more. And lastly, for more resources on what has helped me on my journey and can help you on yours, go to belove.media/resources. That's BELOVE.media/resources. Thank you again for listening.